The only people who want to censor and want to ban, want to deplatform people are those who are hiding something.
From music to media, Zuby has built a global audience by speaking his mind. A rapper, author, and entrepreneur, he's known for his unfiltered takes on success, culture, and personal growth.
You first hit my radar when I saw you doing a deadlift, identifying as a woman, and thereby breaking the world record. What's a dude with a computer science degree from Oxford doing that for?
People across the world thought it was hilarious. In February 2019, it was not a popular position to speak out or even question some of this stuff. Now, in 2025, you can now say that it's goofy to have pronouns in your bio. You can now say that there's only two genders and that men don't get pregnant and women can't have penises and men shouldn't be in women's sports. Most people won't give you that much pushback. They'll be like, yeah, it's a bit silly, isn't it? Saying that in mid-2020, oh boy.
Let's talk about Black Lives Matter.
BLM was a scam. You are using tragedy to line your own pocket. It's all wrapped up under the idea of protecting other people and being empathetic. It's the same narrative that they used with COVID. How was it? You don't want to go out and infect your friends, your family, your community. So just stay home, save lives. That's why it's effective.
I guess most people didn't say something because they were worried about being quote unquote canceled.
I was just saying the things that I know other people were thinking, the things that I was thinking, and that was it.
What's Zuby doing in 5 years from now?
Everything that I'm already doing, bigger and better and on a larger scale. Music, books, podcasts, and doing interviews. Lord willing, I'm going to have many more decades to make an impact on this world and encourage others to do the same. That's when we take the world and our species to a whole new level.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Zuby, the musician, author, entrepreneur, and public speaker. You are the host of Real Talk with Zuby, where you've interviewed high-profile guests like Elon Musk and Andrew Tate, amassing 2 million followers and 50 million views. You're known for your honest and inspiring perspective and promote responsibility, resilience, and positivity. You've appeared on The Joe Rogan Experience, Tucker Carlson, and The Candace Owens Show. As an independent artist, you've released 6 albums, performed over 100 gigs in 10 countries, and shared the stage with industry giants like Tech9, Akala, and The Far Side. You're also a successful author, having published 2 books, Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody, and the children's book, The Candy Calamity. You've said that in order to build a better world, we need to have tough conversations and be open to other people's ideas. Ultimately, you believe freedom, discipline, and critical thinking are the keys to success, and real strength comes from self-mastery and speaking the truth. Zuby, welcome to London Real in Dubai.
Thank you for the intro, Brian. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. I think you first hit my radar in 2019 when I saw a video of you that I think lots of people saw, of you doing a deadlift. It wasn't a small deadlift, it was like 280 kgs, identifying as a woman and thereby breaking the world record. And that's the first time I ever saw you. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm just wondering, what's a dude with a computer science degree from Oxford doing that for?
Sure. Well, I wish it was 280. The video was actually 230.
Okay.
Although my personal best at the time was 275. And look, in the mid 2010s is really when I started to notice the Western world in particular shifting into a strange direction. It was in the very early stages of the mainstreaming of what people now refer to as wokeness. At the time, some people were calling it cultural Marxism. A lot of people were calling it the social justice movement. You were hearing about SJW, social justice warriors. I never hear that term anymore now. But it was the relatively early stages of concepts like, I don't know, critical race theory, transgender ideology, super extreme elements of, I don't know, some people call it third or even fourth wave feminism, strange ideas about race, gender, sexuality. All of that stuff was really coming to a head. It was coming out the fringes of academia, and it was really going mainstream. One of the things that, I don't know if this was one of the things that was actually a major catalyst to it, particularly on the gender ideology side, was actually the whole Caitlyn Jenner situation. So I think that was 2015 when Caitlyn Jenner won Woman of the Year after being a woman for less than a year. And one of the most bizarre things I found about that whole situation, which people seem to have forgotten about, was just that no one asked, what exactly does this mean? So all of the magazines, all of the newspapers, all of the TV stations, and any time it was being talked about, it was just like, wow, this is amazing, stunning, brave, she, her, wonderful, Caitlyn, go. And I'm kind of like, isn't this a guy who was Bruce Jenner, who won like Olympic medals and has been a man for, I think, 60-ish years at the time? Like, even the whole idea of I identify as a woman, like, what does that mean? It was like everyone just either tacitly accepted it or celebrated it or just shut up and didn't ask any questions because they didn't want to be called a bigot. Going a little beyond that into, later 2015, 2016, is when I started noticing the situation happening in sports. So there was an MMA fighter, Fallon Fox, who had previously competed in the male category, who was then identifying as a woman and competing in MMA and causing some serious damage to some women. There were stories happening in the world of athletics and weightlifting, all of these different sports. I started to just notice this stuff happening early, and that's just one side of it. There was the strange conversations that were going on around race. So my entire life being brought up both in Saudi Arabia and in the UK and just being raised the way I was, through the 90s, through the 2000s, even into the early 2010s, it seems like, racism has been dying out for many, many decades at this point. And suddenly, people were being told, whether you're white or you're black or you're whatever race or ethnicity you are, all of a sudden, you were supposed to care about race again. And you were supposed to judge people to some degree based on their race or treat people somehow differently based on their race. It was very antithetical to everything that I had been raised with and what I'd experienced in school and in university. And again, this wasn't just coming from some weird fringe. These notions were being promoted in universities in particular, but also it was seeping into schools, it was seeping into the media discourse, it was starting to be pushed by companies, corporations, governments were starting to promote identity politics in all sorts of ways. Similarly, I mean, when I was a kid or when I was a teen, you'd hear about the LGB movement, and then it became LGBT, and then it became LGBTQ, and then it became LGBTQI, and they kept adding more and more letters. And again, for the past few decades, the notion had been, look, some people are gay, some people are same-sex attracted, they shouldn't be mistreated, they shouldn't be discriminated against, they shouldn't be bullied or gay bashed or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, cool. Like I'm on board with that, right? I'm not on board with persecuting or discriminating against people. But then it got pushed further than that. It went beyond the whole gay marriage debate, which I think was mostly settled in the West by around the mid-2010s. And then it had just sort of, the train went past the station and it just started being, men can become women, women can be men, people can make up their own pronouns. In fact, there aren't just two genders anymore now, there's infinite. It just started getting really weird. And I started noticing all this and speaking about it to people, mainly in private, just everyday conversations with friends and family and stuff. And then it just got to a point, particularly, it kept increasing, 2017, 2018, and it got to a point where I realized that, okay, this is not just, there's something weird going on here, and it's strange that not a lot of people are pushing back against this, because some of these ideas are nonsensical and are actually dangerous, because you are asking and demanding people to even go as far as suspending reality and outright lying about something as essential as basic human biology. And this is going to have very severe consequences. So in late 2018, I just started to speak up a little bit more on my platforms, particularly on Twitter. So I've been on Twitter since, now X. I've been on there since 2009. I've been on social media in general for 20 years at this point. I joined Facebook in 2004. So I've been on social media a long time, but I mainly was just using it as a vehicle to connect with my fans, promote my music, put out the occasional music video, let people know where I'm going to be performing, that kind of stuff. I never viewed myself as any type of cultural warrior or political figure or anything like that. I never thought that my ideas were even particularly interesting. I mean, to this day, I think 90% of what I put out there on social media and say on podcasts or say on stages is what should be common sense. I often joke that, I'm not a radical or an extremist. I'm a normal person from 2005. And I just started to, at the same time, of course, you'd had Brexit happen in the UK at this point. You'd had the first Trump election happen and all of the strange response to that it was a very similar narrative in both countries, where it was just like, well, anyone who voted for this is racist or is a bigot or is hateful. And I was like, even if you don't support Brexit or you don't support Trump, that's a really stupid and asinine way to view your own country, your own population, but also this issue. It's just so closed-minded, right? If there's an issue and 50% of people are on this side of it and 50% of people are on that side of it, and I'm going to simply conclude that, well, everyone who disagrees with me is not just an idiot, but is driven by some type of animus. They're racist, they're white supremacist, they're hateful, they're sexist, they're misogynist. I can't think of any issue where that is the case. Like, human beings are not quite so simple. And big media machines were pushing these narratives as well, and people who I thought were pretty smart and intelligent were going with these conclusions narratives. So there were just all of these things happening simultaneously, where I was just like, man, this is strange. We need more common sense. We need more voices. So I just started to lend my voice to it. Fast forward a little bit into February 2019. I'm standing at my pop-up shop where I'd been promoting my music and my merchandise. And it was early morning. I'd just come back from the gym. And the mall was quiet. It's like 9:30 a.m. in the morning. Not a lot of people are out shopping yet. So I'm just scrolling through my social media feeds. And I see two different stories of males competing in female sports in the USA and winning medals. And I'm just like, this is so stupid. This is the dumbest thing. And then my brain just goes, I wonder what the British women's deadlift record is. Like, I've got a good deadlift. I wonder what the record is in my weight class. So I just did a quick Google search and I saw that I think it was 210 kilos was the British women's deadlift record. And I was like, oh, well, my PB is, I can lift 65 kilos more than that. And I actually already had a video on my phone from one of my previous sessions of me pulling 230. So I just took out my phone. I had 19,000 followers on Twitter at the time, about 50,000 across social media. And I just typed a bit of a joke tweet. I just said, I keep hearing about how biological men have no strength advantage over women in 2019. So watch me destroy the British women deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman while lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. I just put it out there like I put out all my other posts. I thought it'll get a couple of LOLs, maybe a few likes, a few shares, and I created a monster. Within a matter of hours, the video had over 100,000 views, and then 200,000, 400,000, 500. It went up to multi-millions of views. By the following day, I was being contacted by mainstream media channels, the Sunday Times, BBC, Sky News, Fox News. Hey, we want to talk to you about your deadlift tweet. We want to talk to you about transgender women competing in women's sports. We want to talk to you about why you posted this. And I just said yes to everything. Every offer, every radio slot, every TV slot, any podcast that wanted to talk to me, I was just like, sure, I'll talk to you. And initially, the conversations were focused very much around that issue, which was actually very being hotly contested at the time because the Olympics was going to be coming up the following year, the 2020 Olympics, which I believe ended up being delayed because of the whole pandemic situation. Yeah. But it turned out the timing of that post actually hit the intersection of a lot of things that were going on. So the tweet went viral in all of these different worlds. It went viral in the political world. It went viral in the sort of social, cultural commentary world. It went viral in the feminist spaces of the internet. It went viral in the whole weird trans community thing. It just, UK, USA, Australia, Canada, any country that had been having this debate around transgender ideology, female identifying men competing in women's sports, whatever, it just blew up. And I think because at this time, 6 years on now, a lot more people are willing to discuss this issue and talk about it. But you have to remember that in February 2019, it was not a popular position to speak out or even question some of this stuff. We saw something very similar happen the next year with a different issue. And so I was one of the first people with a significant platform who just early on didn't just go the route of giving the biological and logical explanation as to why this is a bad idea, but just took the idea and kind of ran with it. So instead of, yes, I can obviously explain to someone why it's stupid to have males compete in women's sports, but I'm just going to take your logic and I'm going to run with it. And it also ended up being a bit of a checkmate maneuver because even the people who had been promoting this ideology, if you ask them, what is a woman? They'll tell you a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. And if a man identifies as a woman, he's a woman. That's been their whole narrative. That was the Caitlyn Jenner narrative. And so I was like, cool, I'm not going to get mad at you. Cool, I'm taking that. Boom, give me my record. And so it was this checkmate move where you either had to go, well, okay, this person is not actually a woman and this is silly, or you have to acquiesce and go, oh, well, I guess if she identifies as a woman, then this is valid. And so it just led to this gigantic wave of media opportunities. Joe Rogan discovered it, talked about it on his podcast, invited me on. Tucker Carlson, when he was still working at Fox News, he did a whole segment on it. Ben Shapiro did a segment on it. Steven Crowder, like all of these people, predominantly in the more conservative media space, people across the world thought it was hilarious, right? Like even people on the more left and progressive side, like it was just such a, I think the post just kind of nailed it. So, it just went super viral. It went crazy viral, and I took advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me. At this stage, of course, I already had lots of music out. I'd started my podcast at this point. I built up a good presence on social media, so it wasn't like the tweet came from
Investment Club. Today, I consider it the best investment that I've ever made. We get 4 projects presented a week by their associated CEOs. Personally, I'm completely blown away by the quality of these projects, and I know of nowhere else where I would be given this same opportunity. Each week that passes, I feel more appreciative of the fact that I'm a member of this group. The vibe was just tremendous. Everybody's on the same wavelength. We just clicked. Everybody listened to each other, enjoyed their company. It was just magical. Take action. Don't take my word for it. Due diligence you need to do. And I really hope that someday down the road I see you in the club. It far exceeded expectations, without question.
Someone who had nothing else interesting about them. So when I was able to do these interviews and speak about other issues and so on, people are like, oh, okay, this guy's smart. Oh, he's got an interesting background. He's a British guy from, British Nigerian guy raised in Saudi Arabia, studied at Oxford University, a musician, so on. So people got to know me, people got to know my personality, and 6 years later on, here we are. People still want to talk to me.
And that was the upside of that, perhaps. What was the backlash? Because I know at one point, Twitter suspended you for maybe another comment you made, and I'm sure you got lots of hate on the back of that. And I'm sure also as you continued to talk about how you felt over the next year or two, because more events happened in 2020, that you got more of that as well. I'm just curious, what was that like? Also, Twitter back then wasn't owned by Musk, and we forget that maybe the reason all of these narratives propagated was because of the tech companies and the media companies, which were almost all heavily left-leaning, or what Musk called the mind virus, that it was exporting. I think we also forget how big that was. What were some of the issues you faced there?
It was 99.9% positive.
Okay.
And I'll tell you something interesting, Brian. I mean, when I was going on some of these mainstream stations, particularly with BBC, because with BBC in the UK, they have to do their best to be impartial, and whatever issue they have, they try to present both sides rather than just one side of it. And when the cameras were off and the microphones were off, the people were like, the amount of people, women in particular were like, thank you. Really? Thank you so much for what you're saying. Thank you so much. This is absurd. Wow. Thank you. Because they either can't or feel like they can't speak up on it. But again, in the background, they're looking at these issues and they're just like, this is absurd. The idea that a big man like myself or yourself can one day just say, I'm a woman. And everyone, no one's meant to ask a question. Everyone's just supposed to refer to us as she, her, whatever it is. You could have fathered children, but you're just supposed to be a woman now. And everyone, society as a whole, is just supposed to go with this, no questions. It's hard to think of something that's more absurd than this. But that was where we were. And so a lot of people were just afraid. A lot of people were afraid. And the thing is as well is, I'm very, I don't have any ill will in my heart. So when I talk about issues, whether they are contentious or controversial, I don't need to dance around too much or hide anything. I'm not some hateful bigot who hates some particular group or even individual and is trying to pretend that I don't. I don't. I'm simply someone who seeks the truth and aims to speak the truth and aims to maneuver in a way in the world that is right and that is righteous. I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect, but I just do my best with that. I don't have some evil ulterior motive, and I'm not trying to, I'm not hateful, I'm not a bigot, I'm not, whatever name they try to throw at me, it doesn't stick, because anyone who's met me, anyone who's spoken to me, anyone who's interacted with me, which is millions of people around the world at this point, it's like, okay, like pull it up. I don't even delete my tweets. Like if you can find out of those 200,000 posts I have out there, you'll find me being hateful, right? You won't find it. You'll find very much the opposite. At the same time, I can say that this is absurd and this is a bad idea. And so the backlash was, there was some backlash, of course. I've had people try to say that I'm a transphobe, or I've been called a white supremacist, strange one. Any ism or phobe, it's been thrown at me many, many times. At this point, how much of that stuff was even organic versus astroturfed, I don't know. But there wasn't really any real pushback, because what would the pushback be? Like I said, if people are like, well, you're not actually a woman, they're undermining their own ideology. By their own definition, they're being transphobic. If I say I'm a woman, and I insist that I'm a woman, and they deny that, I'm like, hey, isn't that your own definition of bigotry and transphobia? Or, like I said, they have to acquiesce, in which case, yep, I'm the strongest woman in Britain, which is also comical. So the pushback was not as much, nowhere near as much as I think people may have thought, and I think it's because there was nothing aggressive or hateful or bigoted at all in not just the post itself, but the follow-up interviews and things that I did, all these media appearances. And some of the stations, you could tell they tried to insinuate somehow, you know how they do their interviews, right? Yeah. They try to sort of push you to, they almost like want you to say something bigoted so that they can be like, we got him, that's why he did it. And it's like, no, you're not gonna get me on that. Because I can just speak totally honestly. And I don't need to guard my words too much because I know what my motivations are. I'll speak the truth. If I have a point that I make and someone wants to question it or challenge it, or they feel a different way, completely fine. I'm not trying to censor anyone. I'm not trying to shut anybody down. I don't need to play that game. Truth is on my side on this one. So yeah, it's fascinating how much things have changed in a relatively short time. And then, of course, going into 2020, that was a whole different era. Which again, I was one of the few people with a big platform early on who was asking questions about what was going on with these lockdowns and talking early about how, look, if this is not going to be the 2 weeks to slow the spread or 2 weeks to flatten the curve, whatever narratives they were putting out there in different countries, I was like, this is, if you give them that inch, they're going to take a mile. And that is exactly what happened. It went from, suggestions to mandates to punishing people who didn't want to go along with certain narratives and do certain things. And again, across my different platforms, Instagram, YouTube, my podcast, Twitter at the time, Facebook, I was just saying the things that I know other people were thinking, the things that I was thinking, asking the questions that journalists should have been asking if they were not captured and were not cowards. And that was it. So yeah, it's weird how I've ended up in this position because I never set out to become, I don't know, a voice for the people or a voice of reason or whatever it is. There's a lot of people who view me that way now, and I guess I appreciate it. I'm honored by it, but I don't think it should be so rare. I don't think it should be so rare. I mean, I was brought up and raised to, if I see something that I don't think is right or someone is trying to push me or prod me to do something that goes against my values or that it isn't right, then I say something. I do something. I don't fear backlash in that way. I've had so many people ask, were you worried about being deplatformed? You worried about this, I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to be, I don't want my account suspended, and I'm not going to do anything that's such a clear I'm not going to blatantly violate rules and give them an easy excuse to ban me or suspend me from something. But I'm also not going to be a coward. I'm going to say what needs to be said. I'm going to ask what I think needs to be asked if I feel that it's important. And that's simply how I operate.
I guess most people didn't say something because they were worried about being quote unquote canceled. And maybe the first demonstration of canceling was Me Too. Maybe that was the first kind of mainstream thing where people were losing their jobs and they could see people losing their entire livelihoods when they were accused, some rightfully, some wrongfully. And I'm guessing that's why everybody was a little freaked out at that point. They would let so many weird narratives go right in front of them without saying something. I mean,
you know what? I think that's secondary or tertiary.
Okay.
I think the first thing is that what's interesting with the baskets of issues that we've talked about is they all fly under the banner of compassion and care. So most people, thankfully, are fairly compassionate and caring and empathetic. Most people don't want to hurt other individuals. Most people don't want to unnecessarily be mean or cruel or disrespectful or insulting. Like that's generally a good instinct.
Yeah.
So what I always found really insidious about everything that's under the banner of the woke movement, and I do think it's comparable to what happened during the COVID era, is it's all wrapped up under the idea of protecting other people and being kind and being compassionate and being empathetic, right? That's how it's all framed. And so they kind of hijack people's natural instinct towards kindness and compassion towards their fellow man. So most people don't see how insidious it is. Okay. It's the same Black Lives Matter framing. Okay? Why don't people, how are you going to speak out against something that's called Black Lives Matter? But I believe in that. Like, I'm not a bigot. Of course, whether you're black, whether you're white, whatever color you are, right? Unless you're actually a mean person. Like, if you just hear that name, you hear those words together, it sounds good. Why wouldn't you support that?
It's genius.
It's genius, and it's the same narrative that they use with all these different things, right? With COVID, how was it? It was like, protect other people, the greater good, right? You don't want to go out and infect your friends, your family, your community. So just stay home, save lives, right? Don't go outside. Going outside, it's not about you, it's about everybody else. And so to stick your head above that parapet and go, nah, I think this is nonsense. I don't think this is right. I don't think that they're doing this out of compassion and kindness and public health. What, you want grandma to die?
Yeah.
What? You don't care about this? You like that's why it's so effective and so insidious. So most people don't even see through that first layer because they just accept it at face value. And beyond that, those even who do, most people don't want to be called names. It's not pleasant to be attacked online or offline, or to be shunned by family or friends, or to be called names in the media or just on social media or just in your private circles. People care about their reputations. No one wants to, it's why that thing of just, I don't like that person, I'm going to call them a racist, I'm going to call them a white supremacist, I'm going to call them a Nazi, I'm going to call them a sexist. People don't want that label attached to them. That's why it's effective, right? Remember they were going around calling everyone an anti-vaxxer. I mean, I don't even think that's the worst thing to be, but it was just like, we're just going to stick a label, anti-science, right? Yeah. You're anti-science, you're a grandma killer, you're this, you're that. It's labels that will get you shunned by the rest of society. That's what the tactic is. It's the same tactic on all these different things. It's just different labels. So I think that is why it takes such a long time for, what's interesting with each of these narratives is that now, in 2025, you can now say BLM was a scam. You can say that and you're not going to get a lot of pushback. Saying that in mid-2020, oh boy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, right? You can now question masks. You can now question lockdowns. You can now question the vaccine itself and certainly the mandates. You can criticize Fauci. You can criticize whoever were the public health officials in your country. You can question it all now. You can say that the social distancing thing was nonsense. You can laugh at the silly mask thing. But doing it at the time, being early on all that, it wasn't popular. You can now say that it's goofy to have pronouns in your bio. You can now say that there's only two genders and that men don't get pregnant and women can't have penises and men shouldn't be in women's sports. Most people won't give you that much pushback. They'll be like, yeah, it's a bit silly, isn't it? 5-6 years ago.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, so we've actually made a lot of, it's weird to even call it progress because it's stupid that we even had to have so many of these debates to begin with. But I think we're at a really different position now than we were as recently as 2021, let alone 2018, 2017. So I'm curious to see where we go in this next decade.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about where you think we're going. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Because 2020 was a crazy year, and then in the middle of a crazy year, it got crazier.
Yep.
And I remember this protest near Parliament Square where they had the horses out and the Black Lives Matter people were protesting.
In the UK?
Yeah, it was in the UK.
Isn't that even crazier?
Yeah, and I think it was like May maybe or June, something like that. So in the middle of COVID, obviously everybody's freaking out. You're broadcasting, calling it out. We're broadcasting, calling it out. And then all of a sudden Black Lives Matter happens and then there's protests out there and all of that's going on. And that was a whole nother issue where it got everybody asking them questions about race. What was that like for you? And what did you say? And you must have had controversy around that and blowback.
Yeah, of all of I've said a lot of things over the last 20 years publicly. I've put out a lot of social media posts. I've said a lot of things on podcasts, on TV, on stages. My early pushback against Black Lives Matter was actually the most controversial, more than anything I said about anything to do with COVID, more than anything I said to do with other weird race narratives or critical race theory, more than anything I said about the excesses of the LGBTQ movement or transgenderism or anything like that. My pushback against BLM was the one where, some people, people I truly love and respect thought I'd gone off the deep end. And what's remarkable about it, perhaps even more, is that BLM is not a new organization. It wasn't started in 2020. BLM has been going on since the mid-2010s. If I remember correctly, I think it was after the Michael Brown shooting. I might be wrong here. Someone can fact check me, but I think it was after the Michael Brown shooting in the USA, which I think was, I want to say that was 2014 or 2015, I think. That's when the whole BLM thing started. And I'd looked into the movement early on, like in the mid-2010s, before anyone knew me for any social commentary or anything. I'd just done some basic research on it, and I knew that it was an organization quite literally run by Marxists, and that it wasn't really about looking out for black people. They had weird LGBTQ stuff in there. They had lots of like anti-capitalistic stuff in there, talking about wanting to dismantle capitalism. They had something on their own website in their charter talking about wanting to disrupt or dismantle the nuclear family, talking about abolishing the police. All of these ideas, like actual radical left-wing ideas. So I sussed early on that, this organization it's not what it says on the tin. It's like a radical left-wing movement run by actual Marxists. Just saying that sounds like some conspiracy theory, but it's not. You can find videos of the people at the top of the Black Lives Matter organization describing themselves as trained Marxists on video. And
they're trying to weaponize an issue or hijack an idea and then pull their whole organization along with it.
Yeah, and the reason I thought it was so insidious was for multiple reasons. Number one, because people are sending money to them, but also because you are using tragedy to line your own pockets, right? So you're waiting for one of these high-profile killings to happen in the USA, essentially. White cop, black person. You're waiting for those incidents to happen so you can capitalize on it and then start pushing and campaigning, and then you're funneling that money to wherever it's going. It now turns out that they were buying houses and buying stocks and paying off their family members and so on. But again, if you go back to 2020, none of this was known. 2020 is when a lot of people think BLM started. It's not. It had happened before, but I think maybe due to the situation we were in with the lockdowns and the sort of heightened tension and fear anyway, after George Floyd's death, it was international. It went outside the borders of the USA. I think social media obviously plays a huge role in this. And you had protests from Berlin to Japan to the UK, like countries where cops don't even carry guns and people are marching around, Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot, so on,
what the London Real Investment Club actually does for you. It gives you the keys to open that door to the inside deals. In the last 3 weeks, I've participated in 3 incredible deals: a layer 2 Bitcoin protocol, an incredible AI protocol. The deal flow is beyond what I expected. I don't think I've ever seen a model like this that just gives average folks the opportunity to be behind the deals, and that's exactly what we've done. Not only that, you get to hang out with Brian Rose every week. And for me, that was huge because I look at Brian as somebody who's not only an expert in the space, and I think is on the leading edge, but just the leading edge of thought with London Real and the work he's doing there. To anyone who's taking a serious look at this, I know it's a big decision. It was a big decision for me and my family, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I wish you all the best and hope you come join us.
Again, how much of that is astroturfed, how much is organic, I don't know. But I saw this all springing up again. Like, I've seen this happen a lot of times, and I just put up a couple of posts specifically criticizing the organization. And I actually explicitly said in my post that I'm talking about the organization. But that wasn't enough. A lot of people got very, very upset with me and mad about it. I had to do some cleaning up around that one. I won't go into too many details. But
cleaning up as in getting rid of people in your life?
No, not getting rid of people in my life, but explaining and not really being heard.
Okay.
But defending myself from accusations that I've, switched sides and I've become
personally with people.
Yes.
Just personally behind the scenes.
Yeah. Because people are looking at it like, how can, sometimes I have to kind of try to put myself in other people's brains and shoes with the knowledge that they have. And they're like, how can a black man, after this thing happens with George Floyd, people are upset, understandably, people are angry, people want justice. And they're like, how is a black man criticizing something that's called a movement that's called Black Lives Matter in the aftermath of this? From my perspective, what I'm seeing is a whole bunch of people getting duped. I'm seeing a whole bunch of people, again, having their compassion and their empathy hijacked by bad actors who are then lining their pockets with quite literally millions and millions of dollars in donation money, which is now flooding into the BLM organization. And it's not going towards improving black communities in the USA and investing in their neighborhoods. At the same time, I'm also seeing one black man dies or is killed, depending on someone's narrative, in Minneapolis. And in the riots that followed, another 20 people died. So 20 more people get killed as a result of the anger and the backlash. I don't know how many hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of property damage is done, including damage to stores owned by lots of black and brown people in predominantly ethnic minority communities. People start, then you've got people ripping down statues and just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. You've got white people bowing down to black people in their street and doing these weird, there's just all this, It was so weird. When you think back to it, it was just bizarre. You're like, what's going on here? Remember even the corporations, remember they started all sending out newsletters talking about how much they like black people and how they stand against racism. You're gonna play a video game, there's a notification comes up supporting BLM. In the sports field, basketball, they paint BLM on the court and on the fields, and the players are taking the knee. And it was hysterical. And I'm just looking at this all I know that most people's intentions here are good. But your emotions are being hijacked here. You're not thinking clearly. You're not looking into what is this narrative? The money that you are sending, where is it going? There was that whole, I have to put up a black square on Instagram thing. I had people unfollow me on Instagram for not putting up the black square. It's you people have lost your minds.
I remember the black square.
You've lost your minds. If you think it took what happened in 2020 for me to realize that Black Lives Matter, right? Me, coming from the family I'm from, the friendship groups I'm from, being who I am, really, I've been walking around my whole life assuming my life doesn't matter, my parents' lives don't matter, my siblings, it's just so, it was very frustrating. It's kind of weird reflecting back on it now because the narrative has changed so much.
Yeah. But it's tricky at the time because I'm guessing if you're a black man or a black woman, you think about a moment or many moments in your life where you might have felt that because of the color of your skin, you were treated one way or the other. Mm-hmm. You might have felt that. And when this happens and they crank up the emotions, it's so easy to just say, hey, this is a racist world and we have to fight back and we have to push back. And then you dial up that emotion and all of a sudden the amygdala gets lodged and the cortex doesn't. And all of a sudden you get people that you would think that are reasonable that are going to that side, and then they're angry at you for taking a step back and saying, whoa, do you guys see what's going on here?
Yeah.
We're being hijacked. So is that the way, is that a correct way to look at it? Because I'm seeing that maybe that would happen. You could maybe weaponize any other issue with anybody else that might have had one of those issues in their life and said, oh, you remember that? And a lot of people might just go with it.
Yeah, and I think it was so much more, I think that the lockdowns were actually a really significant factor. I think people had been stuck at home for months. Okay. People had been bored, people had been isolated, people had just been being fed fear every single day, every hour of the day. And then suddenly this thing happens and people see the video, it's caught on video, people see the police officer kneeling on George Floyd. And I mean, when I saw that video, I was upset.
Yeah.
I was, before I even knew the name George Floyd, I had actually posted a few times about just seeing that video and my thoughts about it, right? And then it was funny, I also had some people in my own audience, which is more conservative leaning, who are, kind of, really strong back the blue type people, who were then, criticizing me for and so you're kind of just caught in this weird thing where you're like, yeah, that was bad, that shouldn't have happened. There are now people, there are people who think he died from the knee, there's people who think he died from overdose.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.